Hello, puppies and kittens. We're doing a supplement to the usual Quran lesson for the infidel, where I have been with my usual team of apostates. I'm going to be speaking with an apologist on the same material. The surahs, what were the surahs? I forget, 82, 84, 78, and 79, I believe. So, and this is Ahmed, and he has some notes. So go ahead, take it away, Ahmed.
All right, so good day, everyone. Peace be upon you. So my name is Ahmed, and also Finding Truth. And I've been on the show, so I guess last time it was mixed, apostates and apologists. And I guess this time I'll just be going through Aaron's notes that he posted to his website, and I'll have my counter notes. So starting with Surah 78, which is Surah An-Naba, his comments over, your comments, Aaron, over ayah from 1 to 4, which Abd Halim translates as what are they asking about, to the momentous announcement about which they differ. They will find out in the end, they will find out. And your comment is, should I skip to the end of the book to find out myself? My comment here is that the Abd Halim translation here is not so good, because it doesn't say anything about the end in the ayah. It says, سوف يعلمون, no, they will know. ثم كلا سوف يعلمون. Then it says, then, no, they will know. So it doesn't talk about the end. And what this means is that he's repeating the warning. So it's like you find your child not studying for the exam, and you tell him, you will know, then you will know. It means that there will be two stops where you will know the results of your actions. In this specific example, for example, you will know because you will fail your exam, but then you will really know when you see the effect of failing your exam on the rest of your life. So what the ayah 4 and 5 here means, you're asking about the momentous moment, which is Judgment Day. You're asking in the sense of denial or rejection. So you will know the result of this rejection twice, because number one, you will not be acting in the way that you're supposed to act in this life, which is a test. And number two, when you are there, you will see the result of those actions that were not consistent with the way Allah wants you to act, and hence there will be retribution. So that is my comment. So I think it starts from not a very good translation. I have noticed actually many times that some of your comments to some of the ayahs are because the translation is not so good. Are you fine with this first comment? Do you want a counter comment? Or?
No. The reason that I'm using, I just got what looks like 3 super stickers at the same time. Doubting Thomas, who's a friend of mine, just donated $20. Maybe he did it 3 times, but wow. I'm thinking I think that's a duplicate. There's something repeated for whatever reason. Thank you, Thomas, for that. The reason that I use Abdel Halim's translation for 2 reasons. One, when I was in Dubai, a friend of mine there gave me that book and said that in his estimation that this would be the best way for a foreigner, a Westerner, to read it. And
well, it does use simple English. It does use simple English, which is an advantage. But sometimes I see that he is not directly translating the ayah, but he is giving, like, for example, when we go to the next one, when he's talking about the mountains, he's not translating the ayah actually. He is even getting meanings from other ayat, which might be a little bit confusing. So, but it is generally simple English and serves the purpose.
Would you be able to attribute this inaccuracy in the translation to the fact that these verses are rhyming and there is more effort put into the rhyme than the meaning itself? And Abdul Halim is honestly trying to convey the meaning, and that's why he's using language from the translation that doesn't exactly pertain to the verses?
Well, we lost your sound.
We lost your
Ahmed.
sound.
Oops, you got me now?
Yep,
Yeah,
I can hear you now.
Yeah, so I wouldn't attribute it to that, because for example, in this specific example, or in any other example that we can go through, in this one he says كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون. There is no rhyming here at all. Actually, the ayah is totally repeated, but the second one has ثم, which is then. So it is intensifying the warning. Like you will know, you will really know. So it goes like this. And you don't have to worry so much about the rhyming when you're repeating. The difference in translation.
If you get the verse,
Logie, let him talk.
Right. So it is rhyming, despite of these two verses are repeating. Yes.
The difference in translation here is that, for example, when I explained it, he goes beyond the word then to what I had explained. So I said it's two stops. One of them is there will be retribution in this life, and then there will be retribution in the hereafter. So he skips to that, and he says, in the end. He means by in the end, the hereafter, obviously, in my opinion. But it's not so clear. I think he tries to use simple English and make things pretty easy to people. I have, for example, gone through other translations. I have actually started my own series of explaining the Quran in English in the order of revelation. And it is quite hard when you move from one language to the other. I think it's one of the reasons that, for example, when the Bible lost its, or the Gospel at least lost its Aramaic and went to Greek, and then, to Latin, and then to other languages, that many meanings have been distorted. So always going to the original language is an advantage. And sometimes it depends on the strategy of the translator. If he wants to make things so easy, when you're translating, it looks very obvious to you because you know what you're thinking, but not necessarily to the listener. So you can reach the same meaning in different paths. I cannot blame him, but I'm commenting on your comment, which is, do I need to skip to the end of the book? So for some reason you took it, in the end, they will find out. He meant in the end, like in the afterlife. You took it in the end of the book, which was your choice, actually. You are muted, by the way.
I realize that. I was just making a joke there because of the way that it was written, the way that Abdel Halim wrote that. They'll get to the end, and then they'll know. And when it comes to the end, they'll know. Well, can we get to the end so that I'll know?
Yeah, so it's not that end. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
I'm having a software issue, so you keep talking. I can still hear you. I'm going to have to duck out for a second and then reload the browser. Be right with you.
Yeah. You go to verse number 6, where it says, Abdul Halim's translation is, did we not make the earth smooth? And you respond, no, because the earth is not smooth.
Yeah.
And in Arabic, it is أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا. And mihada is not smooth. You will find in other translations more explanation to that. But mihada comes from mahd, and mahd is like a bed. So the earth is made convenient, restful to you, like it is made for you. So you make your bed, so you rest, and it's convenient.
Yeah, I want to comment again about the reason that I use Abdel Halim. There's a second reason, was that I found an online version, which I don't think is available online anymore. But I found an online version and I downloaded it. And the advantage that I have with that is it allows me to copy huge blocks of text at once and then do the editing conveniently. Whereas every other version of the Quran that I've happened across won't let me do that.
Yeah.
So So it would be kind of painful or arduous and inconvenient to try to use any other translation. But others have pointed out that Abdel Halim does put more interpretation into his translation, and that there seems to be where he's trying to lead a particular direction where some of the others are not. And I've noticed that when there are disparities, very often there's disparities between every translation that I've ever had. I mean, at one point I had to read 6 different translations of the same verse to understand what the hell any of them were saying. But when there's a disparity between all of the others, Abdel Halim is the one that stands out. It's always Abdel Halim is always the odd one out.
Yeah. So again, going back to, Arabic is a very rich language. You start from a single root of a word, and it just flourishes into so many meanings. So, for example, this word mihada, it comes to mahd. It comes from mahada. It's like made easy, or made even, or made convenient. And out of that comes the word mahd, which is like a bed. So somebody would may translate this like, did we not make the earth like a bed for you, like a resting place, a resting place? You will find somebody saying smooth. You'll find somebody maybe saying convenient or easy to live on. My comment here is that it is up to our best knowledge that the Earth is a special planet. We don't see a planet like it. It's in the Goldilocks region of the sun, or our star. It is for sure a planet that is convenient for life, and it is for sure convenient enough for human life to be there. So we have very fragile and not very strong bodies, and this looks like a place where it's more likely to live without getting injured and stumbling all over the place. So it's yeah.
And then we have to look at the reality that you're not saying that God created the earth for us. God created the entirety of the cosmos, on which we are entirely limited, 78 billion light years across in every direction, and yet we can only inhabit a fraction of a portion of the surface of this one 8,000 mile globe, and that's it. So it seems hugely inefficient.
Well, I can respond to that because, okay, so when you're reading the Quran, you read it on the premise that it is actually conveyed by God, and then you judge it. I cannot remember what's this methodology. It's a logical methodology. You judge it until it either gets consistent with itself and with the universe, or it hits a contradiction where it has to. Your initial premise needs to be false. So
my problem is that it's just nothing but contradictions. I mean, I can't even begin to pretend that I'm reading it from a God's perspective, because a God would know better than everything it says.
Absolutely. So we're here to rule that out, or to otherwise assert it. So, for example, here God did not say, "I created the whole cosmos for you to inhabit." I would have this concern of yours if he said, haven't you seen that I have created the cosmos or the skies for you to inhabit? He doesn't say that. He says that he made the earth for us inhabitable and convenient to live. So I wouldn't have that concern. So this is number one. And number two, he did say that we are not the only creatures that are living in this specific universe, in what we call dunya, or the lesser world, or our own known sky. He is quite insisting that he created other creatures we call jinn, who are our best approximation is that they are sort of energetic or electromagnetic creatures. And those, he commented, that they not only inhabit the earth, but they have access to the cosmos. And if they are indeed electromagnetic creatures, they travel at the speed of light or close to it.
But that's not possible with what the Quran says. The Quran, I read it from the premise that people understood at one point that the earth was a flat disk, and that God spread out the map of the earth, and then he set mountains on top of it, and which we'll get to in a moment, and these are placeholders or paperweights to hold the map down. And then he covered the whole thing with a giant crystal dome called a firmament, which is more explicitly spelled out in the Bible, but it was a common belief throughout Asia at one point, where you have the flat earth map. It's on a table, it's on columns, and then you cap the whole thing with this firmament, and all of it is in water somehow, so that there's an eternal abyss everywhere, and there are windows in the firmament to let the water in, and fountains in the earth to let the water in that way, or they can be shut up so that the earth remains a dry bubble in this eternal abyss. Within that concept, you have the genies, or the jinn, or the genie, that exist on the earth, and they're basically air elementals or fire elementals, and I think the Quran exclusively calls them fire elementals, though air elementals is also a common interpretation, and that these try to go up into the vault of that firmament where heaven is. So God lives within it, at least within this concept. Heaven is within that vault, that firmament. Did we get another person? Oh, that's my wife. Okay. Anyway, written from this perspective, the genie on the earth try to get up into the higher levels, into that vault of the firmament. And when they get too close, then the angels reach in, grab the stars, and use the stars, which are very tiny things. They're very just tiny little lamps, and they use them as projectile weapons. And that the reason we see shooting stars is because angels are lobbing stars at genies to use as projectile weapons to keep them from eavesdropping on God's plans.
Okay, so if I comment on that, the word firmament is never mentioned or an equivalent in the Quran. This is a more biblical term.
Admit it.
The genies or the jinn, as they are called, are described as created from fire. This gives them abilities to act like energy and gives them abilities to embody. So fire is this state of hot gas and heat and light. So they have a more dense element than angels, which are pure light, but they are obviously lighter than us, who are made of materials mainly. But there are verses that say that they traverse the sky. There are no verses that they are shot by stars. The word shooting stars is an English word. We don't have a word like shooting stars in Arabic. We have something called shihab, which is translated as meteorites. And وَيُخْذَفُونَ بِشِهَابٍ ثَاقِبٍ, and they are shot by penetrating meteorites.
Okay, so that confirms the interpretation I was talking about.
Yeah, so it is. This happens when they are traversing the skies and they pass their limits. The skies, to us, there are 7 skies, and this sky that we live in has a limit. In our scientific thinking, it has a limit of what we call the whatever you said, 78. I think it's 93 billion light years across. But it doesn't make a difference. Whatever, if there is something beyond the microwave background or there isn't, there is a limit, a certain limit to them, to where they cannot pass. And if they want to pass, they are punished. We cannot.
With what? With what?
Sorry?
Punished with what?
With those projectiles that they're.
How fast those projectiles need to be moving to catch up with them?
Well, it is about how, not how fast the meteorites are moving. It is if they hurt them or not. So if you are moving fast or not, I can hit you with a rock that is almost stationary. So it doesn't make a difference.
You can't hurt me with a rock if I'm moving faster than the rock.
Well, it also doesn't matter if you're made of fire, because you can throw all the rocks at fire that you want to, and it's not going to hurt anything.
The rocks are just going to get a little bit hotter.
We did get confirmation that this is a physical heaven, and that the shooting stars are, in fact, although they're not described as a shooting star is an English word to describe meteorites, and the stars are lamps, but the lamps can be used as projectiles against the genie when they get too close to listen in on God.
Yeah, this is actually my objection. So there is no mixing between the stars, the celestial objects that we know, and the shihab, which are meteorites. So
the language does not make a distinction.
Let him finish.
It does not come as a consequence that the English word for another English word for a meteorite is a shooting star, that in Arabic you can use a real star to be shot at something. Stars are stars, and they are there, they are lighting the sky, and meteorites are those objects that move around. And this is something that we cannot explain, how they, while they have specific trajectories, do angels deflect them? Are there other shooting stars that we cannot see? Are there other shooting stars that are as invisible to us as jinn? We do not know. It is something that is telling us about a different world that we do not have access to.
But we do. It's all entirely physical, and it's concerning this world. and it's concerning a certain altitude in our own atmosphere.
It is concerning this world, but we do not have access to the world, to the frequency where the jinns live. We do not have.
Yes, we do. Because we have fire here. Fire is physical. Fire is a chemical process.
No.
Yes, fire is definitely a chemical process.
So gamma radiation is here, and if you do not have the proper equipment to detect it, you do not detect it. Neutrinos are here. If you do not have the equipment to detect it, you will be completely oblivious of their own existence.
And so we are when our physical bodies are damaged by them.
We detect
if you are able to detect them, there are particles.
Even if you're not able to detect them, radiation can still cause mutations, even if you're not able to detect that you're being irradiated.
And some kinds of radiation are completely agnostic to our presence at all.
But they still cause damage because they're still physical, and so are we.
They don't, because we don't feel them altogether.
Radiation doesn't cause damage to our physical bodies?
I'm saying some kinds of radiation, some particles would pass through you, and you will not at all feel them.
And that would be even that would be a physical property.
It will be a physical property, but it does not mean that you are able to detect anything that exists. There are things that we know exist, and we can detect that they exist, but we cannot directly interact with them. And dark matter and dark energy are quite good examples.
If in fact they exist.
Would you be able to make that statement 10 years
So there are phenomena in this world that we live that have physical effects. We know that jinn can have physical effects if they choose to, because they have free will. But if they choose not to, we have no access to detect them. Angels.
We know that jinn have the abilities that the story says that they have, because we're going according to the story.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about jinn because we have no reason to believe that there are jinn, nor angels either, nor a heaven, nor a God.
We don't have any evidence to them existing. We can't measure them. We can't see them. We can't take pictures.
So you don't have evidence that the second and third and fourth and seventh heaven exist. We are just told they do.
Yeah, we're just told they do. We're just supposed to believe.
Why do you believe things that are just told to you? You have your own mind to use.
It starts from believing that the book is from the creator, and he's giving you some information because it is relevant.
Okay, but the information given is not relevant, and it's not correct either. So it's obviously not from a creator.
It is relevant because he is telling us about jinn not for fun. He is telling us about jinn because there is a type of jinn that does interact with us and give us bad thoughts. And he is telling us about angels because they are giving us certain functions that he is actually going to mention in the surahs that you are going to consider.
Okay, well then let's continue through this. The stories mention jinn because they are stories made up by people who didn't have adequate explanations for things, so they made up things that don't really exist, and you assume they exist because the story says they do. The story is complete bollocks. Just because it says so in the story doesn't mean that it's real. I've hung out with way too many Europeans. I just said bollocks. Anyway, I'll let you take up your notes and continue on.
Okay, so the next one is, your comment about the mountains. It's ayah number 7, and make the mountains to keep it stable. Actually, this is another extension that Abdul Halim is saying, because the ayah is not saying anything about stability. It says, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا. And الْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا means, and the mountains as pegs.
What is the purpose of a peg?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, that Abdul Halim is going beyond translation.
Yeah, but I'm not going beyond the translation. I'm just reading. وَالْجِبَالُ أَوْتَادًا. Well, what is the purpose of a peg?
I was going to respond now. So, what is the purpose or not? There is actually another surah, I think it's Al-Anshiqaq, which will mention rawasi, and then we can talk about the function. But I would rather stick to what the ayah is mentioning, because this is what this is about. So he is given a contrast between the earth, which is mihada, which is made convenient for life, and to mountains, which are perpendicular to it, like a peg. The nice part about this is making this similarity between a mountain and a peg. Because a peg, you would fix a peg in the ground, for example, to fix a tent to a place. And the property of the peg is that the part of the peg that is seen above the ground is much less than what is below the ground, like a nail. You're hitting a nail into something, and only a small piece of it is outside, and a bigger piece is below. And so what I like about this ayah, or I'd like to draw your attention to it, is that a mountain is made similar to a peg, in the sense that what we see from a mountain is like the tip of the iceberg, if you would like. And this is scientifically proven. I can share a Nature magazine paper with you that shows that mountains that are rising have roots, and that those roots are proportional to the height of the mountain above the surface of the earth. And even that when those mountains erode with time, the roots would also erode with time. So the point made here is that the similarity made between a mountain and a peg is quite consistent with science.
Yeah, I've already had this conversation with another Muslim apologist named Hamza Sortsis from IERA, and he tried to argue that isostasy, geologic concept of isostasy, which is exactly what you're describing right now. It confirmed that the Quran is correct, because these roots in the mountains hold the earth down and keep it from moving, and that there's no movement under them. And I had to point out to them that the lithosphere flows under the mountain roots unimpeded by the mountains themselves. And he was kind enough to concede that he had made an error. He refused to admit that meant that the Quran made an error. He couldn't make that admission, but he admitted that he made an error, and consequently he stopped trying to argue for scientific evidence for the Quran after that point.
Well, I disagree with him. Surely this ayah is not talking about the stability issue, which is going to come in Surah Al-Inshiqaq, so we can talk about it there. It is talking about how a mountain looks like. If you would like to look
Can
at
I
the
say
peg,
something?
Hello, Diana.
Hi, sorry. One thing, because you're speaking about Arabic. ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا. We made the mountains not like pegs. We made it pegs. It's not a simile or a metaphor. We made it as pegs. So the intent of mountains is being a peg, which is scientifically wrong.
When you say we made it as, when you use the word as, it means similar to. This is the linguistic meaning of using as.
No, not in Arabic. No, not in Arabic.
Yeah, so
we can say والجبال كالأوتاد. كالأوتاد. There's a big difference by making something. No, in Arabic, we made the mountains as pegs, not similar to pegs. In Arabic, and Bogi can agree, in Arabic, your point of view, it should have been والجبال كالأوتاد.
So
كالأوتاد.
I'm sorry, Diana, your Arabic is not correct. If I call Aaron a lion,
really,
it doesn't mean that he has a tail and he's roaring. It means that he's brave. He is as a lion in some aspect. If I say I made Buhraz a lion, it also doesn't mean that he has, a big piece of hair around his head. It means that I trained him to be like a lion from a specific aspect.
What are the qualities of the lion?
Let me just continue. So when the Quran says, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا, it does not mean that the earth is like a bed. It doesn't have 4 legs and doesn't have sheets on it. It means it's as convenient as a bed. Because when you treat specific ayahs in a specific way, you cannot stop at one specific ayah and then forbid using the same language. So the first one is obviously talking in a parable. There is similarity between the earth and a well-made bed for you, and there is similarity between mountains and pegs. What is the similarity is something for you to think. I think you're talking, but you're muted.
I hate doing that. I feel like such an old guy when I do that. Okay, so a moment of clarification, please. What is an ayah?
Is a
An
verse.
ayah, an ayah,
The ayah is a verse.
an ayah is a demarcation of a specific piece of the Quran.
Okay, does that refer only to a numbered verse, or does that,
Yes.
that include a
It's
passage
only,
of
no,
verses?
it's a verse.
It's a single verse only. Okay.
Yeah. So when you say this is ayah number 7, it does not mean. Sometimes even a sentence would be split upon different ayahs. It is a way to demarcate how
Yeah,
you.
that's what I'm trying to discern, because there are sometimes in the Quran there are whole sentences that are divided into multiple verses, or at least, I mean, like it might start with a 7 and end in 13, but technically it's one sentence.
Yeah.
And so you would call all of that an ayah?
No, you would call 7 ayahs.
Each
Got it.
number, the numbering are actually added later. So when you can number them, but when there is a stop for an ayah, it means that when you are reading, it is preferred that you make stops at the end of an ayah. This is what this is. It is a guidance for the reading, rather than a split of the meaning. Obviously, the meanings would be either in units of ayah or multiple ayahs together, but the reading should follow the ayahs.
Ishaq Ibrahim, once again, you really ought to be on the panel, man, because he's always got so many contributions. He says Mount Everest is growing at about 1 to 2 inches a year. Does that mean that Allah is still creating Everest or the Himalayas, or is Everest created?
That's a good question. So it is a good question in the sense of noting the linguistics that are used in the ayah. So he didn't say we. He said alam naj'al al-ard. Naj'al is like make, and when the Quran uses the word make, it in many cases signifies a transformation. So when it says alam naj'al al-arda mihada, we made the earth convenient, it means that at a point of time the earth was not convenient, which is pretty consistent with science. And when it says wal jibala awtada, it means that mountains have also been transformed. And we know that tectonic plates caused the Everest and the Himalayas. And this making can continue for as long as tectonic plates move. And there is no issue there. It doesn't say that I made them and I stopped them at a point. He made them like pegs, and any other newly formed mountains or transformed mountains will keep looking like pegs.
But mountains are not pegs.
I'm sorry?
But mountains are not pegs or like pegs.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, and we already made that point. Yeah, they are like pegs, and I can actually, if you'd like,
well, she said they are not. They are not like pegs. In fact, they are not. Mountains are not like pegs.
I'll share. I can. How can I share something with you? Here, yeah. I think here is a nice Nature article where you can, your audience and yourself.
Okay, pegs are used to stable something. Wait. Pegs are used to stable something. You can put pegs on a tent to stable it on the ground. Mountains are not stabling anything. That's why it's wrong.
Mountains are stabling tectonic plates drift through drag, and I am going to come back to that when we go to Surah Al-Inshiqaq. I have already commented.
You've mentioned, you included a link to a Nature article that talks about the roots of mountains, which you've already described, and so we didn't need the Nature article. But as I said, the lithosphere moves underneath the mountains, so it doesn't make any difference. The mountains are not like pegs. They're literally not pegs, and they're not figuratively like pegs either.
So this is a good comment. So there is no contradiction, because it does not say that mountains are stopping the layer beneath from any other movement. It's not intervening with the Earth's core or with magma or whatever. The comment in another ayah, not in this one, you can extrapolate this one to contemplate the function of a tent peg or of a nail or whatever. But in other places, it is explicit that he has thrown mountains in the earth lest it would shake with you, and tamida bikum, it would not move with you. And he is referring to the earth's crust. And I have two comments on that. this is God is putting it to us that this is one of the functions of the mountains. It is experimentally not possible for us to remove a mountain from its place and see if more earthquakes or less earthquakes will happen in that place or not. So we cannot really actually confirm or deny that mountains are causing less earthquakes to happen or less.
They're not relevant to earthquakes.
And Tamida Bikum, which is the ayah that specifically talks about the functions of the mountains to prevent the earth's crust from shaking or from swaying. Tamid, I think the best translation would be to sway or to move.
Collectively, the Quran is wrong in asserting that the mountains are there to stabilize the earth, because they don't.
I'm saying exactly.
And figuratively, the Quran is also wrong for calling the mountains pegs, because they are not.
I agree.
Yeah, it's not just that they're not literally pegs. They're not like pegs in that they don't perform the function of pegs. They don't stabilize anything. They don't impede the movement of the lithosphere. They don't hold anything down. Everything moves anyway. They don't suppress earthquakes in any way. They have no function in that respect whatsoever. But I wasn't going to argue this point. I was going to move on to other ones and just let this one go.
So just to close this one, the two comments are: number one, you cannot confirm that they do not lessen earthquakes or not, because you cannot remove a mountain from its place and see the effect of that.
Yeah, but we can use areas that are layered in mountains and places that are not layered in mountains. There's not a difference in how I can't think of the subduction. Yeah, there's no change in how that works. The mountain has no impact on that.
And some mountains are demolished, and some mountains are demolished through nature causes, and
including earthquakes.
There's no additions in earthquakes after these mountains are demolished.
So my response to that is, I had a second point, but I'm going to add 2 points to respond to what you have said. So when there is a place of high earthquake activity, it is mostly around places where there is tectonic plate collision or contact. And this is also are the places where you will find mountain series. So the claim
those are not the only places.
Not on the only places, because seismic activity can be transmitted in different ways.
You have areas that where continents are being pushed together, and you have and there's different causes for what raises mountains, but that doesn't change the effect or the translation. I mean, in no case are they pegs or are they like pegs.
So
and
what
in translation, it should have been, if you say it's symbolic, it should have the letter kal autad.
I'm not saying it's symbolic, and it is not mandatory in the Arabic language to put the article ka to signify a similarity. You can
in this case, yes.
It is mandatory.
No, it's not in this case,
in
not
this
in any
case, yes. Yes.
I can say Aaron is a lion, and I mean it that he looks like a lion. I do not mean that he is a literal lion. So again, if you have tectonic plate collision in a specific place, what this will boil down eventually to is that prior to the formation of a mountain series or a mountain at that place versus after the formation of a mountain in the same place, then seismic activity with the existence of the mountain will be better to make this place less swayy or less shaky for people living there. Now, I have a research paper that was discussing this thing, and it was arguing that the root of the mountain will cause drag to the movement of the layer beneath. It seems to make sense to me. But I didn't really continue searching for more material. I don't think there is enough studies. I think studies are, not possible that you would, unless somebody can make a serious study to, for example, look at how seismic activity in the Indian subcontinent collision with Asia was before and after the formation of the Himalayas.
Well, what about formation of mountains that are literally volcanoes that are created by earthquakes and volcanic upheaval? I mean, it's the very thing that you're saying suppresses, that a mountain is supposed to suppress, is the thing that made the mountain in the first place.
So yeah, so what this suggests, or what we know, is that mountains are typically in places of tension or compression. So those are places that are, by their nature, should have high seismic or volcanic activity. What the ayah is saying is that the very existence of the mountain will dampen this already existing seismic activity.
Wait,
Now,
disclaimer. Japan, wait, I'm just saying this one word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Japan is a place with the most earthquakes in the world and have more than 100 mountains.
Which country?
It should have no earthquakes.
Which country? Sorry.
Japan.
Bhutan.
Yeah, maybe I need to repeat my comment. Mountains are by their nature in places of high tension or high compression of the Earth's crust due to tectonic plate collision. It means that wherever you have a serious mountain series, that this place is a place of seismic activity. And it is claimed by this ayah, or what is put forward by this ayah, is that the formation of the mountain series or the formation of the mountains in that specific place causes a dampening of the potential seismic activity. It does not remove it, but it makes it less so that Earth is habitable. This is what
two comments that were made in the chat was, one is the Himalayas are being formed by a collision of tectonic plates. So again, the very thing that they were supposed to suppress is the thing that's making them. And also the entire Pacific coast of the United States is a chain of volcanoes, and Mount St. Helens rather famously caused earthquakes, not prevented or suppressed them.
Well, I think this is something that we see over and over again in nature, that systems are created in a way where a specific effect will cause a side effect that makes the system converge to stability rather than diverge. And if it was the other way around, then systems will not reach stability, and then we will not be living on this earth. And this is a consequence of what the ayah is saying.
Mr.
You're contradicting yourself.
Mr. Ahmed, are you aware of something called the causal chain?
Yeah, how is that related to what we are discussing? I'm actually saying that what I'm saying is that the causal chain that creates mountains creates in the same time a side effect that counteracts what has created a mountain, so that the final effect is that the overall system converges to stability. This is something that is typically found in so many systems in nature. We can go on enumerating other systems like this. You have a process that causes something to increase concentration at the other side of the barrier, and this concentration means that less material can now traverse because the osmotic pressure will not continue to be the same. So the same process that causes salt to move across a barrier due to osmosis causes osmosis to stop at some time. Will you then say that the salt on the other side is causing osmosis or is stopping it? Converging systems that reach stability must have effects that cause side effects that counteract the original effect. This is the nature of systems that go to stability. And what the Quran is mentioning is that mountains are there as an element of stability to Earth. And if you look into the causal chain, you will not find the contradiction. So those are my comments about that.
So if Japan didn't have mountains, it have more earthquakes?
The places that had mountains are places of tension or compression that had seismic activity, and the formation of the mountain dampens the seismic activity with time. The more Mount Everest grows higher, this will mean that more compression, those tectonic plates cannot just keep on colliding with the same rate forever. The more they collide, the more the rate of collision has to dampen, because there is more material getting stuck there.
Okay, well, we're citing evidence to the contrary, and other people in the chat keep putting up evidence to the contrary, but obviously we're not going to make any progress here, so let's move on to your next note.
So the next note is ayah number 8. Did we not create you in pairs? So
no, we did not.
So your comment was actually about being created, not about being in pairs. So well, this is not what the ayah is talking about. The ayah is telling you that it is such a great thing that we have man and woman, because, you know, if we were all men or we were all women, it would be like boring.
And there are many species, even among vertebrates, there are species that are entirely parthenogenic and can reproduce onto their own. So they're basically clones of each other. There are whole species that are like this.
Yeah.
And so you have a division into the sexes, and then those can be reabsorbed back into an asexual population again. So we don't necessarily have to be divided in male and female.
I completely agree with what you said, and since we do not necessarily have to be, he is telling us that it is a gift that he made us this way, because it is nice to have a woman.
All right, let's just move on to the next note, because it's not a gift. We were not created, we evolved, and I know we've had this conversation before where you just, in the conversation we had about evolution, which we should revisit at some point, you said that basically anything that contradicts your interpretation of the Quran is invalid. It doesn't matter what science backs it up. So we're not even going to have that conversation right now, but we will at another point. Let's move on.
Okay, so number 9. So the whole series of the ayat is talking about gifts. So I have made earth convenient for you. I have created mountains that are doing so and so. I have made you in male and female, and so you can have, somebody who's your partner.
So we were not created, and the mountains don't do so and so.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And number 9, it says, so he created sleep. He made us sleep, and sleep gives us rest, and he gave us.
A thing exists, therefore we're going to falsely attribute it to the God we want to believe in. Got it. So,
yeah, and he said then the day is for this. But I'm curious about your comment. Your comment there was day and night are an inevitable consequence of the spinning globe.
Yeah.
That Muhammad, I add peace be upon him here, obviously never knew about. So fine. Yeah. So what if he never knew about it? The whole thing, the miracle of the Quran is that it will be talking about things that the Prophet would not naturally know about.
No, we're only talking about things the Prophet did know about. And so everything that the Prophet misunderstood or understood incorrectly, the errors are included in the book. So things that if it had been written by a God, and then even if Muhammad wrote it first and God came in to edit it, God would have said, no, that's not what I said. No, that's not what I meant. No, that's not what it really is. You've misunderstood this completely. Let me correct that. But God didn't do that. So all of the errors, all of the things that Muhammad and other people of his time already knew, including things that they knew wrong, misinformation that still persisted until that time, all those things are in the book.
So whenever we go into an example that you can use for that, I can counter that.
But I don't think you can, but if you want to bring that up, I have a quick question for you. From my perspective, you worship the book, and you're never going to admit when the book isn't wrong. It doesn't matter how many times it's wrong. It doesn't matter how obvious it's wrong. But the best example of that is where is, and I'm not going to have a long conversation about this. I want to alert everybody. I'm not going to spend but 2 minutes on this, no more than that, if even that. Okay, seminal fluid in the male body. Where is it?
Between the testis and the prostate.
Thank you. Are the testes and the prostate between the backbone and the ribs?
No.
Okay, thank you. So you will admit when the Quran has made a blatant error. That's good. Let's move on.
Okay, so you had your 1 minute. I can have my 1 minute. All right.
Yep.
So I remember I responded once to that, and it does not say in the ayah where is the fluid located.
Yes, it does.
It says where it comes out from. This is what it says.
If it said that, that would be wrong too, but both ways are still wrong.
So if you want to judge a text, you have to judge the text for what it says.
Yep.
You agree with that?
Well, you kind of have to.
Yeah. So I remember I made 2 arguments about that for you before. Number 1, that the specific organ, the male testis, in the embryonic state are in that place, and they migrate outwards for the advantage of whatever, maybe temperature.
No.
Yes, they do.
When there is a point when there is no backbone, or there is a backbone but there is no ribs, and it still isn't located in the area where those ribs would be, when the ribs eventually get there, there's no way, there's no interpretation, there's no time period in which that could be correct. And no one reading this in the 7th century would have ever thought that, oh, well, it's talking about the second week of embryonic development and only then. No, that's not the way anybody understands that. That is an error written by people who didn't know any better, people who didn't know understand embryology in the 7th century. We've already spent too long on this. I have already spent 2.5 hours arguing this exact point. I'm not going to do that again. So we're going to move on.
Let's move on from it. I think we have gone through it before anyway. So number 12, actually the one about the night and day, I wanted to refer to another ayah, which actually refers to what you have referred, which is not in this ayah, but it refers to the process of the spherical movement of the day and night. So in another ayah, the matter of the night and day being a consequence of the spinning of the globe is mentioned in language that can be understood by people of that time, and it is a good coincidence that we are going to go to that surah. So I'm going to delay that a bit because it's coming. وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا is coming in one of the 4 surahs we're going to go through. Number 12, it says, did we not build 7 strong heavens above you and make a blazing lamp? And your comment was, no, there are no heavens. You cannot disconfirm that there are no other heavens. We do not know anything about what is beyond the microwave background radiation. So
we cannot make a positive assertion unless we have positive claims require positive evidence. If you're going to make an assertion, you don't have any positive evidence, then we don't consider it. We don't give you the benefit of the doubt. There is no doubt. Whatever, according to Hitchens razor, whatever is asserted without evidence is dismissed or may be dismissed without evidence. I am dismissing an unsupported assertion as an unsupported assertion. You don't have anything to back it up. There is no evidence of heaven. There's no possibility of heaven. There is no indication of heaven. That's just an empty assertion based on the circular reasoning of the question-begging fallacy, which is ubiquitous throughout religion.
This is an assertion. Whether it is empty or not depends on its being real or not.
Well, so, by definition, an assertion is empty.
If you would like,
it's not that I would like. If you look up what an assertion is,
no. If I tell you that there are particles called tachyons and I cannot show you a tachyon, it doesn't mean it's not there.
No, but there are ways of testing that.
Not that I cannot show you that. It does not mean it is not there.
Doesn't matter. There's ways of testing for it.
Now that you brought up the tachyons, very nice. Tachyons are theoretical particles. Nobody showed they ever existed. They're trying, and the math said they might be there, but nobody ever. And that's why we just consider them theoretical. Okay?
There are some physicists that would insist that theoretical particles exist. I don't agree, but I'm just giving an
but they can theorize freely as they wish until they find the proof. The point I was trying to get to is you keep mentioning the microwave background, which is great. The microwave background is not distinct in any specific way from what's before it and what is after it. So you're calling that one of the 7 heavens is kind of pretentious because it cannot be.
I'm not. I was giving this example. This example in response to Aaron Ra when he was talking about
7 heavens. Where are they? You made a statement.
Where are what?
Saying there are 7 heavens and nobody can find them.
If you can't show reason to believe them, then I have no reason to believe them. And having no reason to believe something is a good reason not to believe it.
So if you want me to react to that, so we have 3 dimensions. In a previous conversation, I told you that in my understanding, heavens are dimensions. And we have 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. And there is something called M theory, I believe, that
proposes 11 dimensions.
Yeah, the proposal is 11, 3 plus 1.
However, string theory also doesn't have any actual support for it. Some eloquent mathematics. And the unfortunate thing for me is that mathematic theory has different rules than a scientific theory. A scientific theory can essentially be understood as when a hypothesis has been effectively proven by an overwhelming preponderance of evidence beyond reasonable doubt. But a mathematic theory doesn't have such strict criteria. I mean, it's much easier to come up with a mathematic theory, and it can be completely false and still qualify as a theory.
Aaron, I'm asking you this. Can you go to the people who are proponents of M theory and tell them there are no extra 7 dimensions? Are you going to be able to make this
Oh, yeah.
From
statement?
a scientific perspective, yes, I am.
Oh, yes.
I am able to make that statement, and they are not able to defend against it.
I
Because
think
they
string
can't do
theorists will disagree with you.
I think string theorists no longer exist for the reason that I'm right.
I think that M theory in part of science is gaining plenty of traction.
It's lost all credibility.
Regardless, so I'm telling you that nobody can say there is no extra 7 dimensions. This statement
But
is
we can dismiss every unsupported assertion. If I make an independent statement to say that there is no blank, whatever it is. I used to have good examples off the top of my head, but I can't think of one right now. If I want to say that there is no X, whatever, and it's not a response to the statement, this is just my own statement. Now I have to show that there was never a global flood. That was my example. If I want to state that there was never a global flood, and this is my initial statement, I then have to, even though it's a negative statement, I still have the burden of proof because I made that assertion without a prior statement. But if I'm responding to your statement that there was a flood, I can just say that all I have to say is, no, there wasn't. The burden of proof is still on you. You're the one making the positive claim. You're the one that has to come up with the positive evidence. My response to the negative, no, there isn't, has no burden of proof.
So if I, as Ahmed, will tell you there are 7 extra heavens, then
Burden of proof is on you.
Yeah, there is no reason for you to believe that I have special knowledge. But if I am the creator of those 7 extra heavens, I can rightfully say the statement. Now it goes back to whether you believe
or
the creator or not.
You as the creator could write the Bhagavad Gita, and then you as the creator have written the basis, the Rig Veda, and all of the bases for Hindu religion. You as the creator wrote all of that, but you as a Muslim are going to ignore everything that God wrote as the basis for Hinduism. Why? How can you dismiss the words of the creator?
Well, so the Vedas have had quite a historical disaster of losing the majority of them. So I remember there was like 40 and only, I think, 12 survived.
And a goat ate one of your surahs.
Sorry?
And a goat ate one of your surahs.
I didn't hear you. Can you repeat that again?
A goat ate one of the surahs in the Quran.
Can you make more explanation? What do you mean by that?
عنزة أكلت سورة من القرآن.
No.
عنزة أكلت سورة. That's what I'm saying.
So God doesn't protect any of the things he allegedly wrote. You got all these different religions that write all these things that all pretend that they were all written by God. The Book of Mormon was they pretended that it was written by God. And then Joseph Smith's wife burned it or buried it or did whatever she did with it and forced him to do it again, saying if it really was a revelation from God, you should be able to do it all over again. Every scripture does this. The Bible has had several, let's say, I think 8 or 10 different books, whole books removed from the Old Testament, and then another set of books removed from the New Testament. Yet it's supposed to be perfect, and you can neither add to nor subtract from either one. And yet everybody that wrote that was adding to, and then other editors were subtracting from both books, the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Gospels. The same thing happened with the goat eating surahs from the Quran. The same thing happened with you know what it tells me? God didn't write any of these. People who didn't know what the fuck they were talking about wrote every one of those.
So we don't have in the history of the Quran goats eating parts of the Quran. The Quran that we have today,
you know what,
the Quran that we have today is completely and exactly the one that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad. The Quran is an oral tradition. It has been saved in people's hearts and written.
And
not a
whose
single ayah.
Quran was it that was eaten by the goat? Was it Aisha's?
The matter of eating something by any animal has no effect to whatever Quran that we have today. We can have a debate
does, because we don't
the
have
authenticity of the Quran and how we can prove lineage for each and every ayah. We can have that in a separate.
We don't need to go there. Once
all right,
again, if you're going to make every kind of excuse possible, even up to including the second week of embryonic development, to try to shoehorn in how semen, which wouldn't even exist at that point, was already between the backbone and the ribs before there was a backbone and ribs, then there's no point in arguing this with you. I'll just go through your next note.
Actually, you cut me off in the middle of the statement. I was saying it was in that place and migrated outwards. However, the supply for that organ still originates from the same place, and the supply has extended to the testis and the prostate in their new position. So the fluids are actually supplied from the place. This is one thing. Another thing is
that interpretation was correct, then your God would know that everybody that ever read this is thinking they're talking about adults. And your God would know that he's deliberately misleading people. So your God would have been lying. And that's your excuse to justify that passage being wrong, because you can't admit that it's wrong. And that's a problem.
He is talking about adults. I am telling you that the supply is originating from that place because the origin of the organ was in that place. It's a fact. It's a scientific fact.
It's a scientific fact that it's not that it was never that. Okay, but we're going to have to move, and you're going to have to defend it because you've bought into a mythology that you have to defend. It doesn't matter how wrong it is. It doesn't matter how obviously wrong it is. It doesn't matter how we prove it's wrong. You've got to defend it, because that's the problem with an apologist. You want an authority that overrides the fact. I'm sorry, the facts override the authority. There is no authority. Arguments from authority are worthless. But that's what you based it on. So we're never going to get past this impasse. So get through the rest of your notes, please.
Let's get through the rest of it, and then you make a comment about the sun being a lamp, and actually the word used in the ayah is siraj wahaj, and siraj is like an oil lamp, and wahaj is like glowing. So it's not actually a blazing lamp, but anyway, the significance
is that a fault of Abdel Halim?
Would be blazing.
Sorry?
Is that a fault of Abdel Halim?
I would just have said siraj. What siraj is an oil lamp, and I would say wahaj as glowing. I would have said that. He likes to use these words, but anyway, your
moment of thinking here.
Yeah.
What does siraj stand for?
So that's what I was actually going to explain. So the sun is burning its.
Does it stand for the sun?
Is consuming its fuel.
Does it stand for the sun?
Yes, it does stand for the sun.
Okay, so when he says sirajan, that means the sun.
It does mean the sun, and it means that the sun is producing. What the ayah means is that the sun, to us, is like what a siraj wahaj is to us when we use it. It produces both light and heat. So this is because it is telling us about the gifts that he's given us. It's saying, I have given you a sun that gives you light and heat. This is what it's saying. I'm not sure why do you have an objection to that? So number 14 is...
The sun existed for billions of years before anybody made up your God. Your God didn't create the sun, but that's just an interpretation we're not going to get past. So, I mean, you're never going to concede that point. So let's move on to the next note.
Since you're an atheist, this is your basic position as an atheist. So
the problem is the first word of this verse, which is ja'alna. He did not do anything about it.
Actually, this word is miraculous because it says that the sun, before being a sun, was something else, and then it was transformed. And this is what we know about stellar formation.
Where?
Wait a second.
Where?
I built the Brooklyn Bridge. Do you have any reason to believe me?
Can you repeat that, please?
I built the Brooklyn Bridge. Do you have any reason to believe me?
Maybe you have been one of the engineers. I don't know. I don't know.
I have another thing. I have
don't
another
think
thing.
so.
You say,
You're not old enough,
wait,
but fine.
Ahmed,
Yeah.
Buhraz, Ahmed, wait.
Yeah.
You said that these are gifts. The sun is made for heat and light, right?
The
So
sun
it's a
gives
gift
us
from God.
gives us heat
It's
and
a
light.
gift from God. It's a gift from God,
He says, "I made this for
right?
you." You have this. Yeah, it's a
What
gift.
about the cancer? What about cancer that sun gives people? What about skin burns? What about all the shitty things sun does? Plants burning, all of
Yes.
that. It's also a gift from God.
So in this set of verses that we are considering, he is talking about gifts. In other places, he is also talking about tribulations and about things that he has created that are there to test us. And this includes diseases. I have no problem that God has created. He created death. We die, and we fall sick, and we get our arms broken, etc. And there are viruses, and there's bacteria, and there's funguses. And there's volcanoes, and there are earthquakes, and there are tornadoes, and this is the nature of this life.
And there is
We
bone cancer in babies.
We're not going
And
to
that's
stay
the
here forever.
merciful.
We're not going to stay here
That's
forever.
merciful.
And there is bone cancer in babies, right?
This is not read in the context of being merciful or not. When a professor puts an exam for his students and some of the questions are hard, it does not mean that the professor is merciful or not merciful. It is the function of the exam to have hard questions. So when you take things out of their context, you
Exam
cannot.
wants to give you cancer.
The professor,
Exams want to
regardless
give you
of
cancer.
right, the
Yeah,
professor, regardless of the questions he's asking.
Exams test you by asking questions, but
Right.
if you are in an
The
exam for a military thing,
does the
if you are in a
testing.
military drill, you might as well die from a stray bullet. So it depends on what you are being examined for.
All right. I just want to throw something out
Why
before we
does
move
an
on.
omniscient, an omniscient?
I'm having a problem with the sound from Buhraz. It's growing, weaker and weaker. I can barely hear him. Can you raise your voice, please?
So what
Get that.
does
I want to throw something out while he's suggesting that. I want to throw something about my position as an atheist. The atheist position is one that is that we come to after reviewing the evidence. It's not a position that, like religion, where you have to defend this position no matter what. No, we don't have to defend atheism no matter what. We want to follow what the evidence indicates. We don't want to be fooled into believing things that are not evidently true. We will consider as possibilities whatever might be possible and be open to whatever alternatives there are, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily believe. If we hypothetically examine two different objectives, that doesn't mean that we necessarily believe either one.
Okay. We are having this discussion about does God evidence for existence of God next Saturday, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's leave that for then.
Yeah, whoever that wrote that book and put it in the mouth of God made an error because God did not create the sun.
God did create everything.
God doesn't exist, so God couldn't have created anything.
This
And
is for next
again, as you said,
Saturday.
let be the devil's advocate. Ahmed, you said that God made the sun as a gift for us, and this gift gives us cancer and gives us skin burns and gives us plants dying and lots of things, and it's gonna die and we'll be all die and be dead. So how is that a gift from God?
I'm not sure where I said that this. I said that in this
the sun was a gift from God.
In this specific set of ayahs, he is enumerating his gifts. And one of them is that there is a sun that is giving us light and heat. And we know
And
that
cancer.
life on Earth is impossible without the sun. So there is no real objection to this verse. Now, whether the sun can give us, somebody is, silly enough to sit in the sun for 12 hours straight for 7 months and get skin cancer or skin burns or whatever, this is his problem. And things that are gifts can also cause, if you eat too much, you get disease too. It doesn't mean that food is not a gift.
Okay, I want to throw something else out here. While I very much appreciate Diana and Boraz for all that they do and for all of the help that I get with the series. I don't want it to look like everybody's tag teaming Ahmed. I mean, you guys are here just for the translations, and I very much appreciate that. I don't want to tell you guys to shut up, but I do want to try to get through this guy's notes as much as I can without it looking like people are ganging up on him.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
So anyway, I appreciate you guys too, but okay, because we need to also finish. Let's go to 14, which talks about pouring down rain from clouds. And so the translation is, did we not send water pouring down from the clouds to bring forth with it grain, plants, and luxuriant gardens? So your comment, no, nor was a God ever necessary to bring about any of these naturals. These systems, well, it is a presupposition of the ayahs that God exists and he is enumerating his gifts. So I would pass on that.
So if you don't make that presupposition, you realize that literally God is not necessary for these natural processes to occur. If there is no God, those things would still exist.
So, okay, I can comment on that because water evaporates, forms clouds, and comes down again as rain because water is a very special material that has more than 70 anomalies that are very strange to exist altogether. And he is telling us that among his gifts, that clouds form and that they cause rain. So there is nothing in science, there is nothing in physics that says that our current physical laws that cause for hydrogen and oxygen to exist in the first place, to bind to form water, and to have these specific properties for this miraculous molecule H2O, there's nothing that says that this is a mandatory set of laws of physics. And
no, neither is there anything to imply that it's a miraculous molecule. Given the parameters of the universe that we have, these things would still exist exactly as they are, even if there is no God.
So it depends if you think that the parameters of the universe are, they are there because fine-tuning is a miracle on its own, or there is a multiverse.
Or it's not a miracle. Maybe there are many universes and they have different laws of physics. If the laws of physics were significantly different, then we wouldn't be here to talk about them. But we're not in that universe. We're in the universe in which we can exist. And so, of course, we exist. It's just like the puddle that says, hey, the hole that I'm in perfectly fits me. The hole that the puddle is in must have been made for the puddle.
So you are invoking the anthropological principle, and you are having together with it an infinite multiverse from an inflattened field that is bubbling all the time.
It doesn't matter. I don't necessarily believe in the multiverses. Again, this is just speculation. It's something I consider as maybe.
So I can
show whether it is even possible. So there's no point in really discussing it. We do know that if the laws of the universe were different, then we wouldn't be here. But the laws of the universe being what they are means that the things that are would be, regardless whether there was a God involved or not.
So I can, in the same logic that you use, because you are not God, dismiss the existence of an inflattened field, dismiss completely that there is multiverses, and hence I will.
It doesn't matter. As I said, there's only speculation. It's only things that we can't even show whether they're possible or not. So
absolutely,
they're not even concerns of mine. Given the rules of the universe as it is, the rules of the universe as the universe that we live in, the only one that we know about, these things would still exist whether there was a God or not. I need to read really quick. Alexander Dundee gave €5. Says, I've been on a Mormon mission and have used the same type of arguments, basically contorting the scriptures into a pretzel in order to sound true, in order for it to sound true. Yes, as a matter of fact, Muslim apologists and Mormon apologists have used perilously similar arguments that are so close to each other that I really wish that I could have just had the foresight to know that I'm going to meet the second group after meeting the first one, that I could just copy their arguments and say, okay, let's compare. And if I were to write Muslim instead of Mormon and just throw the same argument back, would you recognize it?
Okay, so you're making me like those Mormon guys,
Yeah, they're arguing for a different version of God than you.
Okay, so anyway, so
one of
my response to your comments on 14, 15, and 16 is that God created the laws of physics the way they are, and hence water has its properties because of those laws of physics, and he is enumerating the fact that it is possible on this earth that clouds form and rain comes down, and hence life is possible. He says that numerous times across the Quran. So
you want to say that the laws of physics by which all of these things would have naturally occurred, you're going to say that that's because of God. And if that's the position you want to take, fine. Then God is whatever created the laws of the universe and has nothing else to do beyond that. There's no heaven or hell. There's no genies. There's no angels. There's just the laws of physics as they are.
Well, we can discuss very great number of open possibilities, at least due to quantum mechanics. But
except
maybe
that angels and genies are not listed among the possibilities.
I'm sorry, the
angels and genies are not possibilities.
We do not have full knowledge of everything that exists in the universe.
Nor do we need to. In order to say whether something is possible, we need a precedent or a parallel or a verified phenomenon in order to indicate that such possibility exists. Without that, we would be dishonest to say that something is possible when we don't know that it is.
So for you as a materialist in this context, who would only care about what you can trace back in a naturalistic manner that affects you physically, you don't care about genies and or jinn and angels. You don't care.
Are you admitting that there is no evidence, literally no possibility, no precedent, no parallel, no verified phenomenon, no fact in evidence at all? Are you admitting that none of these things exist for angels or genies?
I am admitting that even in the Quran, it is explicitly said that we have no access to the world of jinn. So
except
if you
it's the same world that we live in, they were made of fire, and so we have fire in this. It's physical. Back to the first point that we made in this discussion. They're physical. We're physical. We're in the same universe.
Yeah. Nonetheless, it is said in the Quran that tells us that there are jinn. It tells us that we have no access to their presence. It also tells us that they have access to our presence in a way that, for example,
them.
I'm sorry?
We can also experience them.
If they wish to.
Yeah, according to the Quran. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are inconsistencies. So I think we need to move on.
Okay, not really, but I'm telling you that as a materialist, I don't mind if you say I don't have access to jinn, so I will not acknowledge them.
Well, I do have access to jinn if they were real, because they were made of fire, and that's entirely physical. They don't live on a different plane of existence than I do. They live in the same one. They live in the same physical reality that I do. I have access to everything they have access to.
You also don't have access to frequencies beyond, I don't know.
It doesn't matter. They're made of fire. I have access.
1 gigatera.
I have access to the frequencies in which fire exists.
You don't necessarily have access to a creature that is created from fire that has lost we are created of mud, but
I can hose it down.
Not created of mud. We are not made of mud. Mud is not in our bodies. The earliest organisms in the evolution of life did not have minerals of any kind in them. We were not an aggregate of solids at any point in our lives.
Exactly. So regardless that we are made of the same elements of the earth, you cannot directly see.
We are made of elements, yes, but we're not made of mud. The Quran is wrong about that too.
Mud includes the same minerals of the earth. This is the whole point.
Right, and we're not made of minerals. We incorporate minerals through our food, but the earliest organisms were not made of any solid aggregates or aggregates of solids.
It is because your methodological naturalism makes a continuum between human beings and great apes and their predecessors. So
well, it's not that my methodological naturalism has nothing to do with it. It's the fact that we are the same category as apes. We are in fact apes by definition. When you define what an ape is, you describe what people are. That's the fact that you have to accept, and that we are not made of the way that geologists describe a rock as an aggregate of solids, and specifically of minerals, and the way that they define minerals as having this crystalline structure of a solid state, none of that applies to what we are made of or to the earliest organisms we came from. We are not, in any sense, in any way, made of mud. That is a myth that is wrong.
So I had this last Saturday, not yesterday, the one before, an interview with Joshua Swamidass, with Dr. Joshua Swamidass, I think you're aware of.
I don't know the Swamidass, but I've studied a lot of Hindu stuff, so they all kind of bleed together. Who is that?
The genealogical Adam and Eve guy. All right, who is who also accepts common descent with great apes.
Not just common descent, that we are actually apes, by definition.
Taxonomically, yes.
Yeah. Well, what else? What happened to him? Where'd he go?
I didn't do anything to
connection.
I wasn't touching a keyboard or anything. He's just gone.
Yeah, I know.
He's back.
There he is.
You're made of fire. You just vanished.
I can teleport instantly outside of.
There you go, a tesseract.
All right. So sorry about that. So yeah, and the result of his book and his paper, I don't remember the year of the paper, is that science cannot, methodologically reject that there was an Adam and Eve.
Yes, we can.
It just did.
Yeah, multiple times. Multiple scientists have. Even Christian scientists, even evangelical Christian scientists have admitted that there cannot have been any Adam or Eve. Francis Collins, the current director of the National Institutes of Health, said that even though he's an evangelical Christian, he has to admit there is no possibility of Adam and Eve. The Adam and Eve as the original couple, the beginning of our race or the beginning of our species, simply does not fit the evidence. It is genetically impossible for them to have existed.
So the argument that Joshua makes is a genealogical argument, not a genetic argument. And I think you know the difference between those two things. So
yeah. My mother did genealogies forever without incorporating genetics, and consequently, as a default of the genealogy she was doing, not kidding, I can show the documentation to prove this, I am a direct descendant of Odin.
Okay.
Obviously bullshit.
So you're believing in God in the name of Odin now, or what?
This is the genealogy that my Christian mother came up with. She's working with a Christian organization that's a huge network of people that do genealogies. She's Mormon. Mormons love to do genealogies, but they never integrated actual data. And so at some point, way early on, they decided that people from Asia, people who immigrated to Denmark from Asia, would be called Asia Land or Asia Guard, Asgard. And so somebody just, I think, I don't have proof for this, but I think arbitrarily, they just named the first person from Asgard, Asia Land, Asia, to move into Denmark. They identified Odin as Odin and Freya of Asgard were the beginning of this organization.
So I'm sharing with you now on the chat a discussion between Nathan Lentz, who is an atheist, materialist, evolutionary biologist, and Joshua Swamidass. And Nathan's opinion is that evolutionary science does not deny the possibility of a genealogical Adam and Eve, ancestors of everybody who lives on Earth today.
Okay, and I just gave you the opinion of the director of the National Institutes of Health, who is an evangelical Christian, so they should have double gravitas, who says that it is impossible.
Yep.
But this will be a rejection based on genetic impossibility of two couples given us.
And that's what Francis Collins stated, that it is genetically impossible for the human race to have whittled down to a single couple. At one point, we know genetically that humanity was reduced to a population of somewhere around 10,000, but that we were never just one man and one woman. That never happened, and we wouldn't exist today if that had happened.
So Joshua is not making this argument. He says that there might be a population of 10,000 that Adam and Eve interbreeded with, and they were fully human at that time. I don't necessarily agree.
So if they're already full human, then they don't have any relevance. If they're interbreeding with, if they're fully human and interbreeding with a population of already tens of 10,000 some odd people, they don't have any relevance. As what Francis Collins said, they were not the first couple and the parents of all humanity.
Yeah,
so you're
so
agreeing, and your citation is agreeing. These were not possible. That never happened.
I'm not agreeing. I'm telling you that what Joshua is proving is that genealogically you can have an Adam and Eve who lived 6,000 years ago or more, who are the ancestors, the genealogical ancestors of every single human being who lives on Earth today.
And I said that genealogically, I'm a descendant of Odin.
So what?
So genealogy versus genetics doesn't have any credence.
Yeah, except that the scripture refers to genealogy. It does not refer to genealogy.
Hey, there are scriptures that refer to my grandparents too, boy.
So it refers to your grandparents in terms of genealogy, not in terms of genetics. So
well,
if I say
I can cite Asa true mythology. Yeah, my grandparents, Odin and Freya of Asgard, are definitely listed there.
Okay. So anyway, I've sent you my citation and send me yours. But the whole point there is that an Adam and Eve created from dust and a rib cannot be denied by science because genetics cannot disprove it. This is the whole point.
Except that the whole point was that genetics can and has disproved your assertion. It can do it. It has done it. You don't admit that, but that is the fact. I've stated that the citations from the eminent authorities can, if there are any in science, Evangelical Christian, director of the National Institutes of Health, Francis Collins, head of the director of the Human Genome Project. This is what he says. There is no greater authority one can list. I've given it. It contradicts you. It says you're wrong. You can't admit you're wrong, so move on.
Actually, Joshua refers in his book that I have read cover to cover to Francis Collins, and he shows that his objections are irrelevant to his assertion. And I can actually...
You're talking about genealogy, which is irrelevant to any assertion in science, versus genetics. And your citation agreed with Francis Collins that Adam and Eve, genealogically, not genetically, could have been an actual couple within a population of 10,000 people or so. So your citation and mine both agree with each other against you. So continue.
I'm not discussing my opinion. I'm saying that you as a person who agrees with common ancestry with apes, and you agree with evolution in general, with all its assertions, with all the science that you have, in terms of genetics, you cannot deny the possibility of existence of an Adam and Eve created from dust and a rib 6,000 years ago.
Yes, I absolutely can.
Yes, I absolutely can. Yes, we can, and yes, we did.
Yeah, totally and completely. And the problem is you can't use science, because I remember the conversation we had before, where all of evolution is based on mutations, and it didn't matter that I showed you textbook examples of various mutations that are involved. You said that mutations cannot contribute to evolution. It doesn't matter that geneticists say they can and do. You're going to contest the geneticists. You, who are not a geneticist, are going to contest the entire genetics field and say that mutations cannot contribute to evolution, when absolutely every single geneticist ever knows better than you. But you're going to contest them. So if that's the stance you want to take, we can either say, look, we're never going to agree here because you insist on worshiping a mythology and defending it no matter how wrong it is, and we can move on to your next note, or we can end here.
So when we had that discussion, I said that a model that asserts that mutations follow a random pattern cannot create progressive evolution in the way that we see on the ground.
Except the way that evolution actually works, mutations actually do, in a random pattern, actually do contribute to evolution. Demonstrably, verifiably, proven in the lab, many times over, numerous examples. Yes, they do. You're wrong.
I'm willing to back that up. Taking
No,
the
you're,
Cambrian.
no, you're willing, but you're not able. And that's an
I am
important
willing
distinction.
and we can take the Cambrian explosion as one specific example, and I will show you that you
I would
cannot
love to take the Cambrian
justify it.
explosion, since I'm sure you don't understand that either. But we are supposed to be trying to get through your notes on this surah.
Let's go. Let's continue. So we stopped at 16. From 17 to 25, you comment that you don't like the threats of Judgment Day. So the Quran is a
Which
book
surah
of
are we
warning.
in right now? You said 70 to 25?
Yeah, the ayah 17 to 25, time has been appointed for the day of decision.
Which surah?
Day when
78.
the first
78.
one.
We're still in 78? This is
Yeah,
still
we
the
started
beginning?
78. Yeah, I know.
Oh my word,
So-
we started at 2 o'clock. We're still in the very first one.
Let's
Yeah.
go faster then, because my comments are short. You just keep bombarding me with questions, which I'm happy to answer. So I can just
Okay.
go faster.
You're happy to answer, but you're not able to answer. There's another important distinction.
There's a difference.
Okay.
So you're happy to answer them wrong.
By the way, do you want to discuss the Cambrian explosion later or not?
Oh, I would love to talk about the Cambrian explosion with you.
Yeah,
But
I would
there's
like
there
it in
comes a point where
sandwich.
we have to have a common ground that if I show peer-reviewed scientific articles that indicate X, you cannot simply say no, that's wrong. You have to show peer-reviewed scientific articles more recent than those that contradict those. Do we agree on that?
I will not disagree to a fact proven by a peer-reviewed article, but if you are referring to the interpretation of the person who has written the article, if the interpretation is not reasonable, I can contest it, because this is
How
what
do you
science-
show that the interpretation is not reasonable if you don't have a peer-reviewed article that contests that? I mean, I understand your point, because I know I can think of an example right now of a peer-reviewed article that was written by a paleontologist, and I know he's wrong, but unfortunately, I'm not in his field, and I'm not the one to prove that he's wrong. I have to have people in his field to prove that he's wrong. And I've been trying to get someone, hey, this guy's wrong. Everybody knows that he's wrong. Somebody step in and fix this.
But it will not stop you from saying that your opinion is that he's wrong. Because
but I have reasons why. And unfortunately,
good.
it does stop me.
why.
It does stop me. It does stop me from saying publicly that he's wrong, because I don't have the data from his field. I can only show contradictions in the words that he said. That's why I need paleontologists who are working in his field to address the specific study that he did to say, yeah, he's wrong about this. It can't come from me. It does stop me.
Are you contesting the data or the opinion based on the data?
I'm contesting the opinion based on the data.
So the opinion based on the data is just his word.
It's not my field.
Okay.
I can't make a public statement against a respected scientist who is a specialist in this field, and I am not. And I can't publish a document that says this guy is wrong, and have it, because I have published statements to say that he's wrong, but they're not scientific documents. I can't publish to a peer-reviewed journal to say that he's wrong. I need other people working in that same field, studying the same thing that he does, to say, yeah, Aaron's right and this guy is wrong.
Fine, but you can say that you think that his opinion is wrong, and nobody will have anything against you. You will not be able to publish it.
But I can't publish that in a scientific journal. I can't formally refute him. He remains the Cambridge professor in this field. He remains right unless I go through the appropriate channels to show that he is wrong. I can't do that with just reading his material.
I don't think we will stumble on that kind of example if discussing the Cambrian explosion, because I have very specific points. But I can tell you I will not be contesting data. If there is an opinion that is a singular opinion that is making miraculous finite jumps from data that does not justify the opinion, I'll tell you this opinion is not justifying the data.
I will be delighted to discuss Cambrian fauna with you at some other point. We can schedule that. But I do want to get through your notes here as quickly as possible.
So the verses from 17 to 25 is talking about judgment day and hell. And your comment is, because the Quran has to repeat the same threats, empty threats of unjust judgment in every single surah.
Yep.
My comment is, it's a warning meant for you to have no excuse when it comes, so you can't complain you didn't know.
Yeah, the excuse that I have is that it's an unsupported assertion that comes from a credulous source. So there's no way that I can believe this. And if there was actually a God, first of all, let's go multiple steps on this. If there was actually a God, God would know why I don't believe in him. And as a matter of fact, the Quran puts in excuses that God is the reason I don't believe in him. It already says that in the second surah, in Surah 2, in the cow. It already explains that God closed my ears and closed my eyes, or clothed my ears and closed my eyes, and made sure that I wouldn't believe, because God plays both sides of the chessboard. God decides why I don't believe, and then he's going to punish me for what he does to me, what he decides I'm going to do. But if there really was a God, there wouldn't be a hell. If there really was a God, if the whole purpose of God was not the empty lie of Muhammad trying to achieve power, or some other prophet trying to achieve social power, social, financial, and political power, if the purpose of every prophet was not simply to lie, then if there really was a God, there wouldn't be a hell. There wouldn't be an eternal judgment for a finite crime. It wouldn't be for the crime of a thought crime. It wouldn't be for whether we believe or not. It would actually be based on morality, but certainly would not be on. It certainly wouldn't damn moral people who simply didn't believe in an unsupported assertion of impossible nonsense for no good reason. So your hell would not exist if there really was a God. Islam would still be wrong.
It all goes back to your claim that it is an unsupported claim with no evidence.
And that's correct.
Which we are going to discuss next Saturday.
Have fun with that.
Gotcha.
You got me? No. I got you.
Yes, Saturday.
You just walked into that, set yourself up, told everybody what you're going to show, and then when you fail to show that, you're going to have to come up with some bullshit excuse for how it wasn't really your fault that you failed.
Well, I don't expect you to buy it outright, so.
Yeah, I don't expect anybody to buy it who doesn't already subscribe to that. You're not gonna get any converts out of this.
Why do you think that billions of people have bought into it then?
Because we are such a stupid species that we bought into that we are subject to the Dunning-Kruger effect. That the dumbest of us are actually the majority.
You are in contempt of the human race.
Yeah, and so we are so arrogant that we called ourselves man the wise, and Homo sapiens sapiens, and yet we exhibit virtually no wisdom. And then the worst of us also claim to be moral, while demonstrating that we are the least moral of all mammals.
I will keep that to next one, because then I don't want you complaining that we're not finishing. So you will tell me why you don't believe there is any God, and I will tell you why I believe there is God. I'll give you my evidence, and you give me your evidence too. So
you will give me your excuses, and I'll still be waiting for evidence.
Okay, and evidence.
And
you won't be able to give me evidence because there is no evidence to support your position.
Unless God is going to show in the chat window.
Anyway, so sorry, what's that?
Unless God is going to show on the chat window, unmuted and with his video cam on.
No, no, he's not going to show. But
see, God's not going to show because he can't.
Well,
yes, he can.
He can do it.
God needs other people to do his work because God can't do anything himself. God needs people to write his books. God can't make a book or a boat or a box or a building. God can make dinosaurs and planets and everything humans can't make, but he can't make anything humans can make, because the only things he ever made, according to people, are the things that we didn't understand how they were made. So we attributed them to magic. And then everything we could make, God couldn't make, because that meant that a person had to do it, which is why people have to do his work. God doesn't exist. God is entirely imaginary. God is a phantasm. That's it. That's all.
If God directly manifests, there will be no meaning for belief.
And there wouldn't be a reason for hell. And so God would know that, and God would be damning us on purpose for the fun of torturing us, because he knows the reason that I don't believe. He knows what reason would make me believe. And if there really was a God, he wouldn't care if I believe or not, because he would be more concerned with whether I'm a good person and doing what good work. But in neither of the biggest religions, Christianity or Islam, morality doesn't matter. Are you gullible? Doesn't matter how evil you are. Are you gullible, credulous enough to believe impossible nonsense for no good reason? Good. Pay tithe and give the clergy undeserved social, political, and financial power. And then we promise that you'll go to heaven. You won't really go anywhere, because when you die, you're dead, and that's it. And there's nowhere to go, and there's no way to go there. But we're going to tell you this lie so that we can get your money and your support. That's what God is. A lie. That's it. That's all. And when you go to prevent your evidence, a fact which is positively supportive of or positively indicative of one position or hypothesis over any other, you will not provide anything that qualifies as evidence indicative of your position. You will fail. Everybody knows you're going to fail. But if you quote a surah or something out of Scripture, then somebody who already believes the Scriptures will say, yeah, he proved his point. But only the people who already believe the way you do. There won't be any converts from this. You're going to fail. And I think you already know that.
Maybe I'm doing it because I care for you.
Obviously not.
Well,
you're doing that to promote yourself.
Maybe you do.
Why not? Why would I not care for you and care for others, do you think?
Why wouldn't you, right?
Because you would realize the problem with your God.
The problem is the executioner executes the criminal because he cares for him.
Yeah, I gave a speech in a college.
The execution is not a bad person. Yeah. He's just doing what he thinks is the good thing to do.
I gave a speech at a college where I wasn't speaking to an atheist group. It was a group of this college that they were all going to get extra credit if they attend a speech, and it was close to finals time, and everybody had put off. So my speech was the only speech everybody could attend, because you know how students are, right? So yeah. I ended up with a room full of 100 Christians, and I'm giving this speech, and there were these two girls. There were these two girls in the front row who were telling me that they have friends who are atheists, and why am I being judgmental against them? Because they accept that their friends don't believe in God, and that's not a problem because they're good people. And I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if your God was as good as you are? Because your God bases everything not on whether you're a good person, but only on whether you believed the empty promises of the clergyman and the bullshit claims of the Scriptures. That's it. That's what your God damns people for eternity for. And the girls, of course, had no answer for that, because they realized I'm right. That's what God bases everything on. It doesn't matter if you're a good or bad person. Are you stupid enough to believe lies for no reason and give me your money at the same time? That's it.
God doesn't take your money.
Because God doesn't exist. It's the liars who lie about God who take your money.
There is no clergy in Islam that take money from anybody.
So there's no imam. There's no there's no specification in the Quran that you're supposed to donate.
There is no zakat. There is no jizya. Nothing. None of these things ever happen.
In Islam, you pay your alms directly to the poor.
Right. That's the whole point. You pay.
But he's saying you pay them directly to the poor.
Exactly the clergy who's going to take it.
No, Surahs, you missed something important. Ahmed is saying that you give your money directly to the poor, that somehow Islam is not involved, that there is no imam that gets that money to transfer it to the poor.
You never do that.
In Sunni,
no, they collect it in Beit al-Mal and then distribute it to the poor. You can give whatever you want to the poor directly, but that's where it stops. When the zakat time comes, You transfer it from your bank account to the Beit al-Mal account.
So Beit al-Mal has nothing to do with the clergy. It is like the taxation, the revenue service in the
The
US.
clergy is the government in Islam.
It doesn't mean it goes to the tax collector.
So you were wrong before, because you're contradicting yourself now. You're wrong before when you said that you pay directly to the poor.
Yeah, so it is an obligation to the Muslim ruler to, let's say, to make sure that the poor are provided for, but it is only the first 3 caliphs who actually did collect the zakah, and starting the age of Uthman, he delegated that, plenty of that to the people, and zakah today is paid directly to the poor, whether the governments are collecting them or not. It is an obligation on each person.
All right, so Afdel Khan says, why did Muhammad get 20% of the bounties?
Let me just continue that. So if you, as a Muslim, live in the United States or in Saudi Arabia or in Japan, you are obliged to pay zakat. Now, you can go to an organization that has a list of poor people who would say, we have this list, we have an audit service that you can trust, that will make sure that we have collected and then we have paid. If you trust them, you can give them. If you don't trust them, you can pay directly. This agent has been, for a good part of Islamic history, the Muslim state government. It was always audited. It has nothing to do with the clergy whatsoever. It is an administrative function. So there is nothing in Islam called give the clergy your money. The clergy do not collect money. It's not like the churches. So this is a wrong similarity between what you might have experienced and Islam. It's not like that.
So why does the Saudi government collect zakah from the Saudi people in Saudi Arabia at the same time of the year? Why is that happening?
In the case of the Saudi government, they maintain the administrative body that collects the zakat and gives it to the people. But the royal family of the Saudi government, who represent the government, do not take the money of the zakat. They have the revenue from the other sources of income of the government, maybe from the oil. It is not by any means a source of money for the clergy in Islam to take money. They're not. If you select somebody who is a scholar of Islam because you trust him and you give him your zakat to distribute, it doesn't mean you're giving him the money. It means that he is your proxy because he knows poor people, that he can then give you this service. He can also connect you directly to them, and you make the transfers to them.
We are writing 2021 at this point in time. We know that any organization that takes and collects your money does not report back to you as to where they spend it, how they spend it, and for what they spend it. They just take your money.
That's why
as long as you are obliged to give them your money, one way or another, you're doing that payment. So don't tell me that as an Islamic state that draws its constitution from the Quran, straight out of the Quran, and creates the institution of Beit al-Mal, does not forcibly collect your money and spend it any way they want. They may tell you that they spend it to the poor.
Yeah, I want everybody to know
trust me, you will not know which poor got some of your money and which poor didn't.
Yeah, I want everybody to know that Ahmed asked me for the live stream, so he has the live stream. It is likely, though not necessarily, maybe he's not looking, but it is possible that he could see some of the chat messages. Rap Prophet Sheikh Abdul Al-Hazred Muad'Dib, Dune reference obviously, says, Ahmed, how about forcing the dhimmi to pay jizya?
Okay, I can respond to that if you'd like, but
I would.
Do you want to go back to
I don't know what either one of these words mean, so.
So he is asking about something called jizya, and jizya is like taxes paid. The most proper translation. I'm not sure there is a more proper.
There is a proper translation for it: punitive taxes.
Yeah, I got a comment to something. So there's an apologist in the chat who I need to address really quick, who says Satan is the father of lies, as Jesus calls him. Yeah, except that you can't point out one lie that Satan ever told. That's the funny thing. And if you make the mistake of misinterpreting the serpent in the garden as supposed to be Satan, because he wasn't, the Bible not only doesn't say that, nor does it doesn't even allow that. But if you make the mistaken interpretation that you want to pretend that Satan was the serpent in the garden and say that he lied there, he's the only character in that story who didn't lie. So I really get tired of people saying, I want to believe something else I want to believe something other than what Aaron is saying, so I'm going to call him a liar. If you can't show that I'm wrong, then you certainly can't show that I knew that I was wrong when I said it. If I'm not even wrong to begin with, then I'm obviously not the one who's lying. The way that accusations of honesty and dishonesty work is if you accuse someone of being a liar, and it turns out that what they said is correct, then you just sunk your cue ball along with the 8. That makes you the liar. All right, sorry.
Okay.
I'm so irritated at believers always accusing me of lying when the truth is not a lie. It's just because you don't want to believe it.
So responding to the question about the jizya is taxes paid by non-Muslims, because non-Muslims under an Islamic state, they do not pay zakat. And it is...
Come on. They don't pay the zakat. Instead, they pay the jizya, which is 4 times the zakat.
What?
Continue. Yeah.
It is nothing like that. Where did you get that? No.
Read the book.
Zakat is 2.5% of your total possessions. Jizya is nothing compared to that. And jizya is only paid by people who can afford it. And so don't give false information.
Okay. I call that not true.
Jizya is paid per head, and it is a puny little amount, and is only paid by people who can pay.
Did you read the Quran when you made that statement, sir?
And people who are non-Muslims, who do not have a source of living, are an obligation on the Islamic government to support them, because they have paid their tax when they had the means to do so. The government has to have sources of revenue, and this is just one of the sources of revenue. So essentially, under Islamic law, Muslims are the main financiers of the Islamic government, not the other way around.
According to the Quran, what's the zakah? Numerically.
I don't understand the question.
What's the zakah? What's the percentage of the zakah?
The Quran does not specify the percentage.
Oh, yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. Quote me the ayah, please.
Oh, yes, it does. It's Rob al-Ushur.
Please quote the ayah. I will say it doesn't.
It's Rob al-Ushur, okay?
Hummus?
No, this is the spoils of war. It has nothing to do with zakat. Please, if you want to give information, you have to know you're giving correct information.
The zakat is the quarter of the tenth.
There is no verse in the Quran that says this, so do not misquote the Quran.
I strongly suggest that you read your book.
If there is a verse, mention it. Surah number number so.
Because it is not one of the 4 surahs we're discussing today, I'm not going to bring it up.
No, you're not bringing it.
I'll send you, Ahmed. I'll send you the verses via email.
Please send me the verses via any means. They do not exist.
You probably
because I agree with Bobby on that point.
You probably need to read your Quran.
I memorized the Quran from cover to cover. I do not need to read it.
You need to refresh your memories.
No, I don't need to refresh my memory, because I have just read it cover to cover in Ramadan.
You can't not have that detail. It's fairly obvious.
I need to refresh my memory all the time. But when there is an ayah that doesn't exist, I know it doesn't exist.
When there's an ayah that does not agree with your ideas, then you forget about it.
Ayahs in the Quran that talk about percentage.
What is the jizya? What is the percentage of the jizya?
The zakat, however, the zakat is fully defined in the hadith. So
what? It's defined in the Quran. I don't even need to go to the hadith for that.
Sorry, what's the question again?
The jizya is a punitive tax, and it is 4 times what the zakat is. Okay? Go pass it. Go past this by every Muslim scholar you can find.
I will hold you to deliver references to what you're saying, because what you're saying is wrong. So let's go ahead with it.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're going to hold him. Bogey shouldn't have said something that he can't show to be true. I'm confident that Bogey will probably show that he's true. If he can't, then he will have to admit that he is wrong.
Yeah, please do it.
Because if you say something is true and you can't show that it's true, it's not.
He needs to produce two things. Number one, show me where the percentage of the zakat is mentioned in the Quran to be 2.5% of your possessions, because you said it's a quarter of a tenth, which is 2.5%, which is not mentioned anywhere in the Quran. And number two, show me where in the Quran it says that the jizya, not the spoils of war, the jizya specifically is 4 times as big as zakat, which is false. It's absolutely false, regardless in the Quran or not. Okay, so let's go ahead with the surah, please.
Yes.
So skimming forward, we go to fitting requital.
If I had to guess, I think that my wife is putting on her makeup and ready to go out. I'm guessing that she's already figured out that I'm going to need to go out after this, and and she's going to be ready.
All right. So okay. So it was 17 to 25 that we finished. 26. It's about fitting requital, for they did not fear a reckoning, and they rejected our messages as lies, which is exactly what you have said now. So the Quran predicts that you are going to say it, and he says it on your part. And
the Bible also said that there would be unbelievers, that there were people who would not accept Jesus as their savior, and those unbelievers are going to be doomed to hell, and that there would be naysayers of all different kinds. So here you are. The Bible is being proved correct. The Christian Bible is being proved correct, because here you are denying the divinity of Jesus.
I am denying the divinity of Jesus because the Christian word of God does not say that Jesus is divine. And by the way, I just had this last Saturday an interview with Professor Keith Ward, who is a Christian theologian with 50 years of study, and he agreed with me that in the original tradition of Christianity, Jesus is fully human. He is not God. And
there's some discussion as to what the original version of Christianity is. I would tentatively agree with that too, because there are versions of Christianity, very early versions of Christianity, in which Jesus was not considered divine. But it was a Jewish sect. It was like the first. They were Jews, not Jews for Jesus, but essentially the same thing. They were Jews who believed in Jesus, and they didn't consider, what was the name? I can't remember, but they didn't expect that Jesus was divine. And then there's another group that said no, that Jesus was wholly divine, that he was never actually here on earth. And then there was like a collaboration where they just said, well, no, Jesus actually was kind of 100% this and 100% the contradiction of that at the same time. And we'll just do that because we can, and we'll just make Jesus a contradiction of himself. And so he's fully God, and he's fully human, and he was here, and he wasn't, and that.
So just 30 seconds on this. There was a man called Arius, and he lived in Egypt. He was an Egyptian Libyan, and he was a theologian. He was there just before the Nicaea. And his opinion was a very strong one. Constantine made this Nicene meeting, but then a turn of events caused Constantine himself to become an Arian, and it became the official canonical religion of the Roman Empire to embrace Arianism, which does not support that Jesus is God. And it only came later, 80 years later, under Theodosius, that the social Trinity became the official religion. So it is also in the Cappadocian meeting that Jesus was not God. Only in the Nicene Creed, that was not immediately implemented, But later 80 years, so 400 years after Jesus, Jesus became God.
I
Before
tentatively
Peter,
agree with that.
there was,
I'm just,
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Idonai Echad. There was no Trinity in the Torah.
I would
So,
tentatively agree with that,
Okay.
except that I don't want it to be confused with the idea that Arianism was the first version of Christianity.
It was
It
not.
was not. Right.
It
Okay,
was
good.
not. 300 years later.
I need to mention a super chat from Dion Yesen. Somebody please tell me how to say that name. $50 for the gift of going out. Well, thank you very much, Dion.
Okay. You. Okay. So
and the apologist who has been accusing me falsely of Satanism without understanding what Satanism is has what no the whole thing. He was sending a message. Ahmed, I can lead you to the truth that he is the Lord Jesus Christ. Yeah, I want to see that empty conversation.
I would advise him to watch the interview with Professor Keith Ward, which was really a sweet one. He has some opinions about Jesus that relate to divinity, but there is plenty of common ground. Anyway, so we go to 29, where it says, we have recorded everything in a record, and you say, and then lost or forget all the important details. The record here, it refers to your deeds. Nothing is lost. We go to Judgment Day to be judged based on what is written.
All right, then that's my interpretation, because I thought it was talking about a history that it keeps omitting important details from.
Yeah, it's in the same context. So he's talking about Judgment Day, and then how are you going to be judged? It's based on your deeds that are recorded.
Yeah, and this is according to the shoulder angels and what they report.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's
It doesn't mean
checking
that God needs them, but it's the way that God likes doing things. He
What
likes
if your shoulder angel is crooked and is recording bad things on you?
Well, angels are by nature not crooked, so we have to believe
you can't know, though.
If you accept that there are angels, you have to accept them the way they are defined.
Given that Iblis was an
you can't
angel,
accept them and then twist them all in the same.
given that Iblis was an angel, you could have a fallen angel sitting on your shoulder recording bad things.
I'm not entirely sure why this is, because I mean, this is an atheist channel and I'm talking with a Muslim, but there appear to be a bunch of Christian apologists in the chat.
Yeah.
You're not gonna find any meat for your perspective anywhere in this conversation.
There's nothing here to see.
I will agree with them on much more than what I agree with you. So
yeah, but they are just as wrong as you are. So what are they looking for?
Well, let's look at it this way. They believe in God. They believe in messages. They believe in Scripture. They believe in Judgment Day. They believe in hell and paradise. There is a big problem about the nature of Jesus and the nature of the archangel, but many Christians still define themselves as believing in the one God, even while they say that the Trinity exists, and they have to justify how one is equal to three. But they say they believe in the one God and all what comes after that. So,
well, it's the same thing that I always notice, that Christianity believes in multiple gods. They just don't realize that they're talking about multiple gods. That Jesus, the Jesus the Son and the Holy Ghost and Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever aren't just three different gods in one. And a lot of Christians will interpret that there are three different individuals being represented as one. But it's more than that. And we also have the Satan character, which is arguably a god in himself.
Well, Satan in Islam is just a jinn who has free will, and he just chose to...
It depends on what you define a god as, which is another thing we can't get out of people. And now Neil Gaiman has a nice definition for his series, in which genies would definitely be gods. Right. I also have to throw out, I'm sorry, Bogat, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Ghost
just gave $100. I need to acknowledge that. And also... yes, that one I've already read. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Is Satan being a fallen angel, a genie, whatever? Here is Allah, or the Holy Trinity compressed God with all the powers of a Dark Lord Sith, and he cannot freaking smite them away just to show power. Just forget about anything else. Just, I'm going to show you. Here is Iblis. Zapped him. He's gone.
Because, you know, the arguments, sorry, Aaron, I don't mean anything about that. But Aaron is sitting here defying God's command. So if God would have smited or would smite Satan, it means he would smite everyone who defies his command. This is not
that he does.
This is what is, you know, preserved for Judgment Day.
Well, I'm obviously not. I'm obviously not defying God's command. I'm defying the command of some guy who pretends to speak for God.
Yeah, this is your position because you do not believe in the existence of God altogether. So.
If it was actually God's command, really God and really a command, then we wouldn't have 800 million Hindus who are completely unaware of that command, nor would we have all of the Sikhs that we have that are utterly unaware of that. Matter of fact, they have direct scripture telling them that neither Hinduism nor Islam are the great religions, that they've been misled, and that the true way, God's true way, is this middle path, which is Sikhism.
There you go.
I'm not an expert on Sikhism, but if they believe in Brahman the way it is in Scripture, which I do not know if they do.
Yeah, they don't. It's a different way. It's a monotheistic religion, and it has a lot of weird miracles, just like Christianity has, but it's distinctly different. I have another super chat to read. Paul Williamson gave us 10 pounds. Thank you very much. Mr. and Mrs. Raw, have a beer on me too. You're an exquisitely patient man. I'm not good with compliments, so please don't give them. I'm okay being criticized all the time, but it's weird. I don't know how to take compliments very well. And somebody, IOPNC1 gave me $20 tip for the waiter. Is what I think that says. So that's very, very kind.
The way of the waiter. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So it says, "Taste this. All you get from us is more torment." Okay, so you've said something. If you believe that this is God and this is His command and it has consequences, you agree you would comply, don't you?
If there actually was a God, then none of this would be real. If there really was a God, Islam would still be incorrect.
I don't know why you would hold this position, but I would be interested to know in our next conversation. Okay. So the next one is 31.
Make a note of that. Be sure to ask me for the next time.
Sure. Why even if there is God, he would think Islam is not correct. Wow. Okay, so
Ghost is being very generous today. He just gave me $100 again, or he or she, I don't know. This is unrelated, but can you say Edwin sucks eggs clearly? Edwin sucks eggs clearly into the microphone.
This is getting.
Somebody's giving you $100. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so 31, it describes paradise. The translation is, for those who were aware of God, there is supreme fulfillment, private gardens, vineyards, nubile, well-matched companions, and an overflowing cup. And your comment was about giving money to the clergy, and I comment, we already covered that. That money is not given to the clergy, actually. It's just an administrative body, or you can just pay tithes.
That's arguable according to the number of comments here. I don't personally know, so I can't challenge you myself. Anton Gomez just gave us 50 pesos. It says, question for Ahmed.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying your name right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as far as you can, because the H, the Ahmed, the Ha in Arabic is difficult in English. I know that.
Okay, Ahmed. I don't know. I'll just give up. According to Quran, is Satan an extension of Allah or a separate entity?
Satan to Allah is just like a human being to Allah, a creation that has a different nature, and he has free will. He is of another category of sentient beings who have free will, and they will be judged. So he's not a God, he's not an angel.
The Christian apologist JP just said something really stupid. Allah is actually Satan in disguise. That is such an ignorant apologetic. I'm really irritated. One of the things that got me into counter apologetics in the first place was somebody put one of those little comic books under my windshield wiper in this business I was working where it accused all of the Hindu gods. It accused all of the Hindu gods of being Satan. Like that's just a simplistic bullshit excuse to try to dismiss an entire religion. They're obviously not Satan. This religion was worshipped long before Satan was imagined, long before Zoroaster ever wrote the first word about Satan, Ahriman, the opposer, the original concept. So, JP, it is wholly unfair and empty for you to accuse Allah of being Satan in disguise. I mean, I'm atheist, right? There is no God, but that's a stupid apologetic. You need something better than that.
So you spared me a response there. So, all right. So
no, you don't need to. This is as bullshit an accusation as and it can be.
Yeah.
He is as vacuous in a statement that he made as he could probably be. One imaginary friend or imaginary enemy isn't better or worse than another imaginary friend.
It's not a lot different than when the faithful
enemy.
accuse me of having faith. It's that
having
empty.
more faith to be an atheist. Like, dude, get off.
So we go to
Majestic P. Beck just gave me $20 Canadian. Thanks for the company on a dull Sunday. It's been a long day for you, so have a drink on me. Okay, thank you very much for that. Go ahead.
I feel that many people feel that I'm torturing you or something. They are consoling you all the time. So fine.
Yeah, I want to specify. I offered originally that this would be a pre-recorded conversation between Ahmed and I. Now, the reason that Bogi is here and the reason Diana was here was that they both said that you're going to need somebody who can translate Arabic. I conceded that, yeah, that's true. I do need somebody who's more familiar with Islam than I do. I wasn't trying to stack the deck against Ahmed. And I have tried, I hope I get some credit for this. I have tried to restrain both of them from stepping out of that bound.
I felt restrained.
Yeah. Okay.
I originally suggested that this would be pre-recorded so that there wouldn't be any super chat, so that there wouldn't be people donating money. So it was Ahmed. Ahmed wanted me to do this live so that we would have the live chat. So the reason I'm getting super chats right now is because of his suggestion, not mine. I just want everybody to know that.
Allah works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, let's go to 35. There they will hear no vain or lying talk, reward from your Lord, a fitting gift from the Lord of the heavens and earth and everything between, the Lord of mercy. They will have no authority from him to speak on the day when the Spirit and the angels stand in rows, that they will not speak except for those to whom the Lord of mercy gives permission, who will say only what is right. That is the day of truth. So whoever wishes to do so should take the path that leads to his Lord. You make a comment that truth is mentioned in capital T. My comment is that there is no capitalization in the Arabic language. The use of a capital T is just discretionary from Abdul Halim. So this is a comment against Abdul Halim, maybe not against the Quran. But anyway,
and that's fair, because I've heard a lot of criticisms of Abdel Halim's translation or interpretation, because there's a lot of interpretation that's mixed into this. As I said, if I compare 5 different translations, his will be the odd one out most of the time.
I noticed that. Yeah. The final comment actually is ayah number 40. We have warned you of imminent torment on the day when every person will see what their own hands have sent ahead for them, when the disbeliever will say, if only I were dust. And my comment on that is, so when I'm reading these verses and the other verses where you have made the comment that, okay, whether the ayah preemptively says there will be people who say that this is just lies, or people will deny, and you're doing this, and it's giving the warning. And then it says that at the end, you will watch the video and watch every moment, and there is regret, and there is no further room for regret. It makes me feel, sad. This is just my comment to that, and I hope I can give some pointers in our next encounter on Saturday. And
yeah, we're only halfway through this. We're not even halfway. You just read the first one out of 4.
Yeah. So
that was 2 hours, 2.25 hours.
Yeah. So if you'd like to call today, I'm fine, because it's too much because you had already 1.5 hours before that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not fair even to you. I just want to make a final comment that
well, it's fair to me now that Ghost has just made it fair by giving me another $100. Says, I apologize, but last time I couldn't clip it. Edwin sucks eggs. Okay, one more. Edwin sucks eggs. All right, so you were talking about rescheduling. I don't know how anybody else feels about that. I kind of feel that maybe we should just trudge through.
All right, let's trudge through. So the next surah is, so just a final comment.
Right, hold on just a second. I'm sorry, what? Okay, we cannot trudge through. I've just been informed.
Okay, so
let's reschedule, please.
Yeah, so would you since you're having, would you like to do this next Sunday to continue the other surahs?
I could do that.
Okay.
Let me check my schedule real quick just to make sure. I think I'm open next Sunday. What? Give me the next month. Yes, I can do that for you.
Okay, I already have all my comments written down, and we can just start from Surah Al-Nazi'at and charge forward.
Yes.
I hope I did some good explanation for my points. Just one comment is,
what's that?
When I watched the show, I noticed this. You're starting from a premise that this is not God writing the book, and then
because it can't be.
Yeah, and then you're criticizing the book as if a human being is writing it.
Yeah,
and you're judging it given the knowledge of the human being.
Yeah.
Let me put this suggestion to you, that the way I would do it, if I am, for example, to consider the Christian scripture or the Hindu scripture or whatever, that I will start by assuming that God is writing this, and then I will extrapolate this to the point that it reaches an impossible contradiction, something that says that God could not have written it.
Yeah, I did that. I did that with the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible.
Okay, so I suggest that you would do that with the Quran, because
no, I did.
Okay, I will be interested to know how, if you use this methodology, how would you have reached an opinion to deny that the Quran is the word of God? Maybe that you can tell me in the next Saturday thing, where you will ask you, even
what
if
I'm
God
doing with this series. What I'm done with this series, when we've actually read all the surahs in their order of revelation, I'm going to compile them in a book. An infidel reads the Quran. And one of the sidelines of that book is going to be the scientific errors in the Quran, because there are so many of them. There are so many contradictions, just from what the Quran said here, from what it says there. And Bogey has been laborious in pointing them out. I mean, so there's just no way that a God ever wrote this. Everything indicates that this was written by people who had no idea what they were talking about. This book is written from a 7th century perspective, not from the 7th century Europe, because 7th century Europe was more advanced than this, which is sad. This was written from a 7th century Arabic perspective. And the reason that I say that it's sad is because there was a time not long before this when the Arab world was the leader in science and mathematics. It really was. And Islam ruined that. I mean, there was a time when the Arabic world was ahead of Europe, earlier than the European Renaissance. I mean, it had it not been for Islam, everything we do, everything we know about science would have come from the Arabic world.
I'm very shocked that you say that, because the one reason that the Arab world became the leader on the stage of the world in every aspect,
which it's never been, ever,
is which has been an anomaly historically. It has always been like Egypt or Iraq or Mesopotamia, or but to have the Arabs as leading the world, maybe apart from Petra and little glitches here and there, in this global way, the one reason would be Islam and would be Quran. And the reason
you agree with me that Islam and the Quran are the reason why the Arabic world never ruled, never led?
I'm agreeing that the Quran and Islam transformed the Arabic world from nomadic status to world governance, including scientific leadership. And that the reason
exactly the opposite.
Exactly the opposite. And that
right.
The reason
so the Quran and Islam are the reason why the Arabic world never assumed the position they were going to. I may be incorrect here. I used to attribute the invention of the number 0 to the Arabic world. I think somebody else corrected me and said that it was actually from India, but that all of our that we use Arabic numerals, and there were a number of other things that the Arabic world was actually leading. They were taking their place as the leader in the scientific community, and instead of being in Europe, that the printing press that was invented by a Christian could have just as easily have been invented in the Arab world. Everything that we now ascribe to Europe could have come from Arabia, but were it not for the interruption and influence of the Quran and Islam that stunted that intellectual growth.
I would like to put it to you that the reason for the regress that happened is the attitudes of specific governors of the Islamic world to take positions that are contrary to the teachings of Islam, where they would overinflated governments, lack of administrative coordination, sometimes neglecting the secular sciences, etc. But this was not the case when Islam was younger and stronger, and the governments did not see any dichotomy between religion and science.
You think that Islam was stronger when it was younger? Is everything upside down in your world?
Islam was definitely stronger when it was younger. So the Muslim world really went into a decline only in the last 300 or 400 years of the Islamic history.
I think Islam is
which was definitely not the golden age of adherence to Islam.
Somebody made a comment here that I want to respond to
differently, and that Islam does oscillate from being strong to weak along the ages, and that depends on which kind of philosophical attributes of Islam do the general public and the leadership attain and rise.
All right, I'm going to have to bail out of here.
But we don't need to go here because Aaron needs to go and we need to finish it. So,
Ahmed, we started this hangout at 2 o'clock. We started the other one at 11 o'clock. Which of those two time slots would you prefer? And I mean Central Time, my time.
The earlier one. So we start like your original show.
The original show. So that would be 5 p.m. UTC.
That would be, again?
5 p.m. UTC, or also
right.
known as noon Central Time. Okay,
That
I'll
is
put that on my calendar. I'm going to have to bail. I'm sorry to have to go. Bogey, thank you for your assistance. Diana, I doubt you can hear me anymore, but thank you for your participation as well. And I'm going to go. And Ghost, I think we've run out all of Ghost's money because he was making $100 donations, multiple $100 donations. Thank you. But now he's switched to $50 donations. Before he starts donating in single dollars, I want to say thank you for that and bail out of this show.
Thanks. All right. So hope that was a good discussion for everybody, and thank you.
It was better than I thought it would be, but I pity you the next time we talk, where you're going to present your case and talk about the Cambrian explosion.
Okay,
right.
we have to be on a time for that too. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.